What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Thompson Twins, and we're returning for the final tune on their 1987 album Close to the Bone, after which I believe we'll be on to Big Trash 1989. Thank you again to Philip for providing the larger catalog. And the last track on the record is Perfect Day. It's a phrase that certainly makes sense. People use expressions like that all the time. The idea that from waking until sleeping, from sunup until sundown, everything happens exactly as it should, everything feels right, there's no hangover worries from before, you're not worrying or anticipating anything happening in the future, everything feels like it goes right, it's perfect. I would just say, though, that semantically, perfection is inherently a subjective assessment based on normative values and opinions, meaning perfection doesn't exist empirically out in the world, either here on Earth or anywhere else. Even if a process is 100% efficient or maximally powerful in a given context, that's all it is. It's not perfect. It's only perfect when an individual or indeed subjective agent looks at it and considers it exactly as it should be. And again, when you bring in should, you're talking about normative values. So it's not a literal expression as I understand it, it's more colloquial. I would say, of course, that even in a day that seems like everything goes right, there's surely something you could look at and say, well, but if this was even more bountiful, or if this happened with even slightly better timing, or if I felt even better than I did in that moment, then suddenly the conditions that you were describing before are no longer perfect. So again, I expect this to be more of a figurative understanding of the phrase. I suppose this is the words or the introduction of an arcane editor. Nevertheless, I am curious what this perfect day will be and how it will be described and whether there actually will be a bit more complication or nuance to it. Let's see what I can pick up on a first listen. And in fact, I'm recalling an anecdote. I remember someone came into my restaurant and they asked what the total was, and I told them the total, and it was like, $35 or whatever. They're like, oh, perfect. It's like, well, it's not perfect. If it was perfect, it wouldn't cost anything. The resources that were used to make it would be limitless. It would have an instantaneous arrival. The moment that you ordered it and paid for it, it would be in your hand. Like, there's any number of dimensions there that you could say, well, actually, it's not perfect, because if it was, it would be this or that, or, again, a number of factors that feel they are, of course, inferior in the context in which it actually happened. So, I'm a crazy person, don't mind me. Let's listen to the tune. This is Perfect Day by Thompson Twins, and it's the final track on their 1987 album, Close to the Bone. Truly a crazy person. I can accept a long fade for the final track of a record. But yes, it does sound more complicated, talking about why are there so many people crying on this perfect day, and asking another person maybe specifically, like, are you still crying, or was it why are you still crying? And so it feels like, and in fact, wasn't he also saying, like, he wants to wake from this dream, if it is a dream? So that doesn't sound like someone who's in a perfect emotional or mental state either. So it does seem more complicated, but perhaps the distinction is that it's the kind of day that's supposed to be perfect, whether that's a wedding day or a celebration of some kind, but maybe there's more complicated feelings that are occurring during what is otherwise designated as a perfect day. And yes, ultimately talking about concepts of being awake versus being asleep, the idea of being able to step out of a reality instantly when you wake up. So I wonder, there's clearly some nuance here, or maybe perhaps some irony, but I don't quite know where to place it. Still, the Sonics in some ways feel very trademark Thompson Twins, and that we got a lot of percussion. I think there's some xylophone hits in there, maybe a triangle or a chime, but also those cascading drum rolls, right, like leading into the next measure. There were some string synths, I believe, in there, perhaps real strings, but I'm going to guess string synths. And there was a really nice electric, if also low-key synth bass that I noticed at a couple points. So yeah, like in a way, different sounding than some of their earlier stuff when they were a trio, but still, because of the percussion especially, very much recognizable as a Thompson Twins track. I think Tom's vocals sound good here. Maybe not the most incredible I've heard him go, but definitely in a good place. So yeah, curious to hear what the essence of this one is thematically. Looking forward to the next record. Obviously you get to 89, and as in a general sense, as I've learned going through these different deep dives, shifting sonic trends, shifting subgenre characteristics. So curious to hear how a very late 80s and on the cusp of the early 90s Thompson Twins will sound. Do let me know what you think of this. Shout out again to Phil. I will see you next time. Peace.